Good afternoon to all of you, or maybe I must say good morning or good evening, because we're having a very international audience today. So it's an honor to be your host. My name is Ellen de Waele, and I'm delighted to welcome you here at this masterclass organized by Royal Smit Zoon. It's cold and rainy outside, but here in the studio, it's warm and cozy. I'm almost in a Christmas mood. So stay with us for the next hour, because we're going to focus on a much debated topic, circularity. What is it and why is it important? Thank you very much for watching. Thank you, our audience, for watching and sharing your time with us. I must say, I don't know a lot about circularity, so I'm really excited to introduce my guests today, because, yeah, in fact, it is not that simple as circularity. It is really, it's much discussed, so that's why we need professional guests here at the table. I'll start with Nienke Steen, Global Lead Apparel, Textiles and Footwear, Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute.
Yes.
I just mentioned, I thought circularity was a tongue twister, but wow. And welcome Florian Schrey, Account Director, Brands and OEMs at Royal Smit Zoon. So today's masterclass will cover one hot topic, circularity and leather. Is it a match made in heaven or not? We'll find out. So I think I'm ready. My audience is ready. We have more than 550 subscribers, so thank you very much. I hope my guests are ready. Yes?
Definitely.
Okay, let's kick this masterclass off then. I'll start with you, Nienke. So can you explain briefly what the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute is all about?
Yes. Well, the Institute creates the program and the standard for circular products for companies to follow and to get some guidance. We're the one and only standard on product circularity, especially in the textile and leather world. So, I hope it's already familiar to most of the audience.
Okay, because circularity, it's such a generic word. I mean, we're bombarded by it. There are so many different angles, so many different explanations. But is there an easy way, Florian, to describe circularity? Explain it to me as if I was a 5-year-old, please.
When I prepared for this masterclass, I as well did some research, and the easiest I found was from the European Parliament. And it was quite stunning at the same time, because they are explaining that in average each European is consuming 14 tons of raw material per year. And at the end, 5 tons are wasted. So now the idea of circularity comes in, where we look at that waste and we reconsider, is everything that is wasted really waste, or are there raw materials or materials amongst those which can be reused, repaired and recycled? So the idea is with this to keep material as long alive as possible, and with the upside that we need less new materials to come into the circles.
Yeah. So circularity is so important, but can you explain, Nienke, why it is so important? Can you clarify to us?
Yes, to me it's very important, but I think for most of the business models it's also important. And that's because it's based on nature, and nature is such inspiring thing or environment to look at, because everything is so well arranged in nature. So for example, we base our biological cycle fully on what happens in nature. The other thing why it's so important for companies is that we really need to be circular in 2050. So it's also a legal obligation in the near future. And there are already in Europe and on national level many developments, legal developments and proposals where we have to take into account that we need to operate circular. Yeah. And most important, circularity will while keeping circularity in mind, you design products that do good to people and planet. And right now we create products that are very harmful to people and planet. And that's a thing we really need to change, because sources will end. And if you ask anyone if you're okay with harming people for your garment or leather, nobody wants that,
Yeah.
or an animal, or whatever. So we really, I think as a society, we're ready to do it differently.
Okay, and that's where the Cradle to Cradle certified comes into the picture, because a part of the Cradle to Cradle Products Innovation Institute is this Cradle to Cradle certified.
Yes.
What does this entitle? Because, it's a mouthful.
Yeah, but it's not so complex. It's not so
Okay.
complex. We have just 5 pillars.
Okay.
5 pillars to our standard, because Cradle to Cradle certified, that's the name for our standard. So, and that's the one and only standard that has 5 very actionable and clear requirements on how to create a circular product. So first of all is material health is one of the pillars. It's about clean chemistry, having a clean product to be cycled. So it could be ready for the biological or technical cycle. Then product circularity. It's all about designing a product for circularity, but also organizing active systems that really take it back and sort it and cycle it. And then the other 3 are mainly related to the supply chain. So how it's being produced. That's about water and soil. That's about energy use and climate. And it's about social fairness, where animal welfare is also a part of. So that's what we offer to companies, very clear guidance on how to create a circular product. And then we also offer a material health certificate. And that's what Smit Zoon also uses for their treatments. And so that tells all about the chemistry of the tanning agents, that it's safe to use for leather products.
Okay, so circularity. We hear the word cycle, but you just mentioned a biological and a technical cycle. Can you explain that to me, Nienke, and to our audience?
Of course, yeah. So to start with the technical cycle is based on the R strategies. So I think some people in fashion do know already what are the R strategies. So it's about having the product as long as possible in the market as it is, or use components of the product as long as possible. Yeah. And it could be in different combinations. It could be about reusing it, about repairing items, about refurbish, so make it, give it another look, for example, but also remanufacture a product, and it's getting more technical. You could use your supplier for that, for example. But also about recycling, so having a mechanical or chemically recycling process for the components of your product or your full product. That's the technical cycle. That's what most of the people in leather and fashion, and I think also in automotive, use. And then we have the biological cycle. That's fully based on nature. That's really like that you use a product as long as possible, you take care of it, and then in the end of life, after hopefully many, many years, that you can put the product in the ground or to a composting facility, and that it really decomposes in a very natural and clean way, and that it's nutrient to soil and water. Yeah.
Okay, that's clear to me. I don't know if you want to add something, Florian.
No, it's good.
No, it's clear. Thank you very much.
Very
So I was really curious about the relation between circularity and leather, because I was wondering, can we really link them together? So why is leather such an interesting product if you compare it to or with respect to circularity? Why is it?
I think Florian knows
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, when you look at leather, and we have some leather here on the table, leather is a long-lasting material, and it is around already with humans for many lifetimes. What's beautiful about leather is, depending on how you use it and what you need it for, it's shaping to your needs. And it's long-living, and of course it needs maintenance. And this is where most of the time people are lacking information how to maintain their shoes, their leather jackets, their leather goods, so that they are long-lasting and beautiful, so that they are with you for a long time. I mean,
Guilty.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
But there's as well hope on the other side. I was attending the Forum of Sustainable Leather in Paris in September, and there was a French shoe brand now promoting that one of their sub-brands is taking back shoes for a refresh.
Okay.
So if you don't want to maintain your shoes for I don't know how much money, but you can send in your shoes, and then they get a refresh, and you get a pair back which looks like new. So I think there are new initiatives on the way which allow leather to last longer. If you're unable to take care I think brands are willing to do this for you in the future, to as well extend the life of leather with such. And
Yeah.
There's still hope. Nienke,
Yes.
you wanted to add
Yeah.
something?
Well, yeah, when you think about the biological cycle in leather, it's really important to look at the treatment of leather, how it's been treated, and then, because there are the most toxic chemicals used. So I think that's very important to consider when you create a leather product, what kind of tanning agents are used. And I have a great example of Rockamore, which is in our program, who creates shoes with some leather materials in the shoes that are ready for the biological cycle. So that is a really great innovation in our product program. That's an example.
Yeah, because also a part of the Cradle to Cradle certified is a wide variety of materials, right? So what are the alternatives to leather then? Because
there are some alternatives to leather, mainly PU coated synthetics are alternatives, but also bonded leather. It's partly leather combined with synthetic material.
Okay.
Oil, it's all oil-based. It mainly uses a lot of energy and chemicals to produce it. But of course, you have to look at it holistically to all the aspects that I just described in our standard to define whether alternative is better or leather is better. And I think leather could be really a great and sustainable product as long as you look at the whole process and all the treatments and how the animals are treated and if it's a byproduct, for example, of the meat industry. So there's so many aspects to it. And other innovations that we see on the market are fruit-based. It's also very interesting to look at those alternatives, but so far I haven't seen really comparable features to real leather. So real leather stays really for a lot of fashion people, really interesting product still to work with because it's so durable and also over the years, so nice and even more beautiful over the years. So because of the longevity aspect, it could be really an interesting product in our circular economy as long as the treatments are being done in a right way.
yeah, I heard about shoes made of apple waste or something. Yeah,
it could be apple, pineapple. There's so many oranges and also waste of also byproduct of food. So interesting innovation that we really follow, and of course we're open to talk to all those companies also to look if they can also follow our requirements on all the aspects, because that's interesting to look at.
Okay, leather is, I hear you say it's such a beautiful product, and genuine leather has a much higher renewable content and a longer lifespan compared to non-leather replacements. But how do you link circularity with those other non-leather alternatives then? I think that is a challenge, right?
Going to
Florian?
answer.
Yeah, I think that's a big question for the moment. I mean, the world is changing, and we now as well start slowly to see, I mean, when you look at the height as such has 100% bio content. And then we add chemistry to it, and then the bio content typically goes down. But we haven't seen a number lower than 68% of bio content in leather. Typically it's somewhere between 70, 80, and 90%, depending on what leather article you are producing. When we look then in alternative materials, they typically start with 20% bio content or 10 to 20% bio content, and very much the rest is plastics. So then to see how is that recyclable is a big question mark. But we as well see a tendency now to 100% bio-based alternative materials. So there are new materials being developed which are 100% bio-based. But there is, in my perspective, so little knowledge about their recyclability and their longevity yet to then really be clear in saying, yes, they are as good as leather. I would like to add something from a personal perspective where I'm a little bit confused. Leather was there for humans all the lifespans of humans, I would say. And now we put a question mark behind leather, particularly when it's coming as a byproduct from the meat industry. So we are still eating meat, but we put a question mark behind leather. And we are looking into replacing leather with all these alternative materials. I would like to make a shift in thinking and say it would make more sense to replace plastics that we are using by alternative materials and not leather. Leather is bio-based, and there was a survey made by Leather UK at the beginning of this year and published. It was stunning to read this. There are many numbers in that survey. One of them was that 50% of the 2,000 people being asked about leather had no idea where leather was coming from. Once they were educated that it was from an animal, 100% of those people agreed to that out of respect, 100% of the animal should be used. So, which includes as well the skin of the animal. Last year alone, 150 million skins were rejected and wasted. So we have this approach of zero waste. And then we allow ourselves to reject a bio-based, a natural-grown material to be rejected. 150 million skins. I mean, it's massive. And we replace it by something which is industrially produced. So I'm really questioning as well our ethics here. What are we doing and what can we maybe change? So again, I would prefer that we rethink about what can we replace on the plastic side by natural grown materials, rather than replacing natural grown materials by something which is laboratory grown or laboratory made or industrially produced.
Nienke, I saw you.
Yeah, I was nodding.
You're
Yeah,
nodding.
I think yeah. When we look at leather, I think there's some people that really want vegan items, for example, because they're very much against animal cruelty, and I can really understand that very well. And therefore, it's so important that the industry doesn't just directly goes to buy vegan. PU-based products suddenly without looking at all the aspects that comes with it, all the categories that I named, like what happened, what kind of raw material did they use to produce it, how under what conditions is it produced, what kind of impact does it have on chemicals, water, effluents, and then when we look at leather, you have to consider 5 things, and then you're doing really great to create a sustainable product. That's first thing is that it needs to be a byproduct from the meat industry, and that's almost always the case, I could say. I asked many experts in the leather industry, and they confirmed that. That we need traceable supply chains and transparent supply chains. So we need to trace back what is the supplier of the hides, what is who's doing the tanning, who's doing the dyeing. So you need to understand all the phases of production and how they do it. What chemicals do they use? How do they treat people? How are the animals being treated for before they were being killed? So I think there are so many. Oh, sorry, I said 5, so I have to do it. I wrote it down. So the third one, you need suppliers to have an environmental and social management system. So you need to be aware of that, and it must be verified. So there are more certifications, not only Cradle to Cradle, but also the Leather Working Group has great programs out there to really help suppliers also, what can I do and how can it be verified? Yeah. So third-party verification is important. It's important not to use exotic animal skins, for example. That's also important. And the last thing is to avoid the formation of chromium-6, because that's the most hazardous heavy metal that's been used for creating leather goods. And it's so important that the right tanning agents are used under the right conditions. So chromium-6 cannot be formed during the process, and that could release very toxic substances to the skin, for example. Yeah. So leather could be a risky product, but it could also be a very sustainable product. Yeah. So we just have to take the right steps in the process to create it.
Okay, well, I was thinking about heavy metal, that we can agree with the music, but
you can wear a leather product and put some heavy metal on.
Exactly.
That could be. You can do that, without having any concern or worry.
I was just, I'm asking myself leather, you refer to the biological cycle, right? So a cycle is a closed loop, so that means that leather must be 100% compostable. Is that, that's a statement. Is that true? Is that possible? Is that...
No, it's in the ideal world, everything is compostable and can break down as nutrient to nature. But you can always look at the technical cycle to have it as long as possible in the market, to look at repair and refurbish options, to look at new business models where you can really engage with your customer and offer the services they need to that the product stays longer as a valuable product to them. So it's not always about compostability, but it could be a really nice opportunity now with all the developments in tanning agents like Smit Zoon is right now developing, but also others. I think I have some examples later on, where there's a lot of innovation in creating a natural product that can be put in the soil without creating any hazard, but be in the opposite, be a nutrient to the nature. So that's really important development, but we're not yet ready for it. When you look at our infrastructures, they're not ready for compostable textiles or compostable leather yet. So this is a big question to the government. Please organize infrastructures. That would be so good, that we have a place to bring our leather and textile goods that are really in the end of life, or components of our products, and that there's an industrial way, a large-scale solution to really get our products composted in a safe way.
So is it only a responsibility of the governments, the industries? Maybe is there a responsibility?
I mean, we can hide behind those responsibilities, but I think if you want to be a leader in the industry, you can as well start doing something by yourself and as a brand. So I think each brand can look into, do I want to become a leader, and what possibilities do I have, and maybe as well think about collaboration with other industry partners to then say, can we organize something like shoe recycling? This is a big topic in the shoe industry. How can a shoe recycling be organized? I mean, the European government is now funding a machine at least which allows to cut off the soles of shoes so that the soles can be shredded, and out of the shredder can new soles be created. So there is first initiatives we see now, and then if we look into America's own incentives, and I think we can look globally a little bit and try to learn from each other. MR Safety Shoes is one of our zeology tanning partners. They are now with their safety shoes offering to take back the shoes, to disassemble those shoes into the different components, and then create out of those different components new materials or new things, so to reuse actually all the components that they have put into the shoe. So there are things happening, which is really good. So I would say, don't leave it only to the governments, but of course with the pressure of the governments, I think there will be bigger things happening probably with pressure. I mean, we were drawing for the automotive industry a vision where leather out of cars could be recycled if you redesign the interiors differently. So you need to design already that a disassembly can be done within seconds and doesn't take 2 to 3 hours for one seat, which is a no-go for an industrial thinking. And then does a car need to be sold in future with all 4 seats or 5 seats, or could it be sold only with 3 or 4, and you move your driver seats from one car to the other because this is a seat which is mainly used. And we detected up to 6 lives for one piece of leather coming out of one car. So there is a lot of possibilities, and I would hope that the industry is picking this up and creating initiatives by themselves without waiting for governments.
And I think there's also a lot of kind of pointing to the designers, like designers need to change. They need to create a product for the circular economy. And I think every designer would love to do that. But what I see in companies is that designers respond on what they need to do from their boss. So, and their boss asks, please create products that sell well. And so as long as we don't have the KPIs for a designer in place where they say it needs to tick the box on circularity and sustainability and social responsibly made, then a designer won't act like that, because everybody is acting the way that where you get your kind of
input.
your thumbs up.
Yeah.
You look at that person and do the right thing. But so the KPIs need to change for designers, and I think it will only come from companies and investors and board of directors, when they feel an incentive from the market. And the market is the consumers, the big companies that purchase goods. We need this mind shift also coming from market-driven mind shift, but also then because not all consumers will scream about circular products, I have the feeling, and I know from some consumer surveys, some of them would love it, but it's mainly one-third of the whole market. So we need a government in the end to step in and to make some rules, and that's happening right now to really give the last push.
Wow, it's not only about creation; it's also about co-creation. That's what I was thinking while listening to you, Florian. That it's a responsibility of so many parties. In fact, Wow. Okay, but we talked about those R strategies. You said, Nienke, that in the fashion, everybody knows about the R strategies, but are there some other examples of those R strategies? I mean, I have to look: reuse, repair, remanufacture, refurbish, and recycle.
Yeah.
So that's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I would even add one R: resell.
Resell,
because there is a lot of money hidden, and we are not using it.
No.
Yeah.
So this as well we are wasting.
Yeah.
Today we are sitting on money and we are burning it, rather than thinking in a circular loop and saying, how often can I sell this?
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is, because we don't promote only being ethical, we're also promoting sustainable business models, and sustainable business models not only about being responsible or ethical, but also sustainable on the long term.
Yeah.
So I think for the thriving business models of today, you need to include it, because you're burning a lot of valuable sources.
If you think about it,
So that I think, there must be some commercial people now thinking like, maybe
that's an opportunity.
Yeah, because we need not only like the people thinking about animals and people in the world, but we also need the economics, the people in trade to think about new economic systems, and where we can find the benefit. Also, when we talk about money, where is that? What are the business models of the future? And I think there's a lot in what you said about that we use the sources that we normally just burn or put in the ground. But also in consumer relations, when you really do something with repairing, refurbishing, remanufacturing, then you have a continuous relation with your consumer, and you
Long term.
And you can get also a lot of data about consumer behavior during this long-term connection. So I think there's so many opportunities, and right now I'm drafting a presentation for that for companies, just to give them some new, fresh ideas, like how can we really make money of a circular economy?
Okay, wow, I'm curious. Maybe we can organize another masterclass about that.
Would be good next time.
Okay, but talking about also the recycling, one of the 6 R strategies, I must say 6 now, from now on. What are the recycling technologies for leather right now? So,
Florian, you had some ideas, right?
For what we see for the moment is more on a garage scale, I call it, where we have small initiatives, reusing leather, repurposing leather, recutting out of leather. We saw some airlines. These seats are very easy to be disassembled. It's Velcro attached to the seat, so you can easily detach the cover, and then with this have the leather. And some of the leathers have a backing in kind of a fabric to give it more a hold, and so that the leather is not losing the shape during lifespan. But that can as well be used. So you cut the material together, bond it together, and then you create new lifestyle goods out of it, like travel bags, for example, or backpacks, which then can be sold under the same brand as an airline brand, or we could imagine that for trains, or we could imagine that for cars to be happening. So we see that on a small scale, but not on an industrial scale yet. And another possibility are the reswaits from Puma, as well as Zeology partner from us. So Zeology tanning we covered in our first masterclass.
Yes,
it is the first leather which is compostable. To your point again, can or should leather be compostable at the end? So Zeology tanning is really a breakthrough because it allows in the intermediate to be composted, and then depending on what you do with the leather, it might even at the end of life be still compostable. But then a compost plant would not accept the leather as such. So you still need a B2P partner. So you need a company which is claiming back the product so that the compost plant knows what they are getting. So we don't encourage now to put any trainer sneakers from Puma into the organic bin to be composted, because they will be out-selected. So the compost plants won't be happy to get all those shoes now in. So it's Puma taking back those shoes, and they know what's in the shoe. They know that there is no critical or hazardous chemical in the shoe. Particularly in the shoe industry, the glues are the critical part. So the shoe will be shredded completely and then be composted to 100%. So within 90 days, the shoe will be one with soil, so create new soil that the compost plant is selling. That is their business model, selling fresh soil. And it's really fascinating when you look into the leather, as it's so rich in nutrition. This is where the compost plant is now eager to get more of this leather waste, because there is a proof that soil coming from a compost plant, which is enriched by zeology leather, leads to a 20% better plant growth than a comparable soil out of the same compost plant where they added artificial fertilizer. So it's quite shocking to see this. And another component which is very interesting for compost plants is that the zeology tanned leather is biodegrading within 28 days, where other materials need the 90 days which are allowed. So they are as well able to much faster have soil available that they can sell in shorter circles. So it's quite interesting as well as a business model here. So it's interesting what Puma did here with those compostable shoes, and I think this is not only a visionary step to the future, but it's a big step to the future. Many countries don't have incineration plants. They have only landfills or compost plants. But if shoes, instead of going into landfill, could create new soil, that's a game changer, rather than losing them into landfills, which are buried for, we don't know how long those landfills are closed before somebody is going to open them.
Such a beautiful example of how circularity has been put in practice in the footwear industry. And what about the textile industry?
So we have some examples related to the leather industry as well. So we have, for example, Rockamore in our program. I already mentioned them. So they are a great innovative shoe brand that use very interesting, innovative and sustainable ways of creating leather shoes. And they made also shoes with biodegradable components. So that's great to take a look at. Then we have, of course, Smit Zoon in our program with the tanning agents. So we have two examples. I think people can see it also now on the screen. And we just heard it from you, like it's called zeology, right?
Zeology.
Zeology. I cannot say it so beautiful as you. And for example, we have Wet Green. It's an olive plant-based a tanning agent for leather. Very interesting and natural. And we also see alternatives in our program for leather, like Jacron patch, which are the sometimes leather, sometimes fake leather patches in the back of a denim jeans. So we also offer there some sustainable options that are certified in our program. So I see many developments, and really the front runners are showing off that it's possible to do it and really think of the cycles while designing a product. So there are some solutions. I hope everybody will now look at all those solutions and be inspired and do something with it in the leather industry.
Okay, so you talked about Smit Zoon, a game changer, an example. Florian, can you add something about that? as a representative of Royal Smit Zoon?
I mean, we spoke about zeology, the tanning method already. So we are as well working on bio-based finishes, which will as well allow the compostability of leather to support this. But we as well know that for automotive specifications, for example, we will still keep on using PU finishes for a certain time of being until there are truly breakthrough innovations which allow to replace a PU. I mean, we see already that the bio content is rising in the finishes as well. So we reduce the amount of PU needed on those automotive finishes. But if you imagine a car driving under the sunshine in Dubai, 360 days and probably 5 days of rain, or in Arctic areas where it's -20, -40 degrees. So you have these climate changes that the car interior needs to fulfill. So they need to have better protection than in other areas, like home furniture, where we can imagine that it's more natural and where we can really go bio-based. Anja Hindmarch with her Renature collection, she used a so-called silk finish, which is completely compostable. So there are new things which we as well see on leather are happening to make leather more eco-friendly and cleaner. I mean, you mentioned the toxicity of the processes in the tanning industry, and it's good to know that there are as well in the entire industry and as well on the chemical side, innovations are coming into market now which allow to be cleaner and leather to be cleaner.
But for people to adapt or industries to adapt, sometimes you can feel some resistance, and that's where you have to
this is
go
where
through and
this is where we look for partnerships.
Co-creating
It's best to look into how can we do it together, together as a chemical supplier, together with the brands which are interested or OEMs, together then with the related tanneries that they are used to work with. So how can we support each other to get to that change which is really needed? And I think when we speak to people, everybody agrees that things can be done, and it's a time to do it now and not to wait any longer. And we see those changes happening.
Yeah, I think this comes back to the co-creation question in the beginning also. Like, it's super important to co-create together with your suppliers and to know what your consumers, what they want, and if it still can commit to the quality requirements that are out there in the market, and then you can go back to your supplier, but is this possible with this tanning agent? It's really co-production. You cannot do it as one actor in the full supply chain. You really need to cooperate to have a technical and commercial interesting product which is produced in the right way.
Okay, because it's also the vision of your organization. It starts at designing and manufacturing the products. We go to every actor in the supply chain up to, we call it final manufacturing stage. So mainly it's that in fashion and leather, it's the wet processing part. So that's most interesting when you look at environmental practices and social practices. So for us, it's the whole value chain that counts and that needs to deliver data with a product. For example, when a new product is certified nowadays, you get a circularity data passport also that comes with the product that tells everything about the product, if it's ready for to get recycled or composted, what material is it, what chemicals are used, if there's a reverse logistic to take back and sort it. So I think that's so important to do more with the data around the products. To deliver trustworthy, validated data with your product. Because then we know what to do with the products when they are wasted. And right now we don't know what to do with the big piles of waste. And when we mechanically recycle it, we still don't know what chemicals are still in there. So we really need to start with clean production right now and deliver data with products so that we can really know what's in it.
But doesn't, under that circumstances, it makes more sense, like Puma is doing, take the products back and take care of then what's happening with the product at the end of life, rather than allowing it to go into a waste stream of ever kind, and then nobody knows exactly, because there won't be in a jacket or something a data sheet what clearly saying what it was or what the content is.
So for now, it must be really restricted to one product group or one company that knows what's already in it. So that are the solutions of today. But I think the solutions of tomorrow are at scale, so that we know on every product, because it will be also upcoming legislation to have a digital product passport with every product that we produce. So in the future, it can be used at scale. The big solution for the big textile and leather pile of waste that we still will have. So I think that's important to know for people, that right now we have to search solutions that will fit company-based, for example, to have it controlled and verified, but in the future it will be, I think, on bigger scale. So it doesn't matter if it comes from Puma or any other brand, but the product is the place where we can find the information with a QR code or RFID or new technology.
You gave some examples from the footwear and the fashion industry, but are there any other industries that, can how can I say, respond to your call to action?
Yeah, so we work in many industries.
Maybe? I don't know.
Sorry?
I was thinking about cosmetics as a woman.
Also, we do a lot in cosmetics, but also built environment, so all kinds of building materials, tables, chairs, but also the technical things for walls and curtains, and but also cosmetics, cleaning agents. So it could be, it's kind of a one size fits all standard, you could say, but you have those assessors, those really skilled people that will help you to translate it for your product. And we are also, like, I'm the lead for textiles and leather, for example, so people can also contact me, like, what does this standard really mean for my product? Because every product has a different story, different background, different supply chain. But our standard is adaptable for any product group.
Wow, okay.
How long does such analyze of a product take?
That's a good question.
Well, it takes a long time because we gather a lot of data. So it's now between half a year and a year. Wow. It could take, and it's mainly not one product, but a product group from similar supply chains, similar materials. So then companies can gather more products. So that's also more interesting to them to have a whole product group certified at once.
I received a question from our audience, from a viewer, for Nienke. It's a question for Nienke. How can products be designed for both durability and be easily taken apart at end of life?
Yeah. That's the contradiction we have
the
here.
$1 million
Because we
question.
put all the treatments on the heights because we want to make it durable, and then we want to break it down as easily as possible. So that's indeed where all technicians and scientific people are now studying on. But we have some solutions out there that we already named, like there are, because it's all about the conditions where you place a product in. So normally if you wear a shoe, it's often not so humid and not so warm that it really has the conditions to biodegrade. So so they develop the biodegradation part under certain conditions. So that's important for people maybe to understand. But it is exactly the painful point. Like, okay, this is the head breaker for the scientific people for the development of all the tanning agents and the chemicals that we can't use anymore, and the ones that we want to use. So that's exactly the ambition that we have in the industry, and it's possible. It's already there. So it's possible to have tanning agents that do kind of perform in terms of durability and longevity, but also perform when it's brought in the right conditions, in composting conditions.
Yeah. Okay. And Florian, I have a question about the leathers that you use in the composting tests. What type? Are they tanned, retanned, or finished?
So what we have tested so far was mainly tanned and retanned.
Okay.
The only finish that we know of is from Anja Hindmarch with the silk finish, which passes the compost feasibility studies, and as well that leather biodegraded within 28 days. We have an automotive leather supplier who is really keen to understand now if the Zeology tanned leather that he is producing with an automotive finish would fall under the compostability conditions, yes or no.
Yeah.
So waiting for a feedback to know if that might be possible. As I mentioned before, within 90 days, 90% must biodegrade, and 10% are allowed to take longer. But they must be toxic-free. So first of all, this material needs to be screened into toxicity. If it's non-toxic, it can go into this compost cycle to see if it will biodegrade to the percentage that is needed to be really called then compostable leather, and that would be really a huge breakthrough. So, and the same counts as well for shoes, but you need to know that each test is roughly about 4,000 euros. So it's an invest that you need to take. Without a guarantee that the test result will be to your favor. So it's a try and error, and it is in the interest of tanners to see to the market, is their leather compostable, because that would really be as well an amazing marketing tool in the storytelling, that the leather that they have now in hands with zeology tanning can be composted even if it's finished with a certain type of finish.
Yeah, wow. And Nienke, can we improve circularity by reducing the use of fossil-based materials?
Yeah. Right now we accept fossil-based materials in our program as long as they're recycled and recyclable. So that's important. Yeah. In the technical cycle mainly, because it's really hard to make oil-based products that do biodegrade. There are some innovations out there as well, but I think it will be interesting to see what happens in the future. But we know the oil is scarce, and that we will need to find more renewable sources for our products. And I think that's the area where most of the interesting where we need to get our sources from. So I think that's most of the interesting direction would be the renewables, I would say.
Okay. And Florian, how big is the demand of circular materials for fashion, footwear and automotive?
I don't have numbers, but what we see is that particularly in apparel, the biggest market for the moment growing is pre-owned apparel, which is the market grew 11 times as much as the normal apparel market in the last year. Particularly probably as well due to COVID. People were at home, they were going through their wardrobes and sorting out, and then they had the time at home to sell it online probably. So we see that particularly for apparel there is a huge market now, and what's interesting when you look into the leather goods though, that particularly in the luxury handbag market segment, sometimes women don't want to wait for a handbag to be delivered because some handbags have a waiting list of 2 to 3 years, but online you can get it immediately. So the price is higher than a new bag in the shop. So that's really interesting to look into this luxury segment particularly. Daniela and I, my colleague, we were in New York for 2 trade fairs in July. And it was very interesting to see, at least we saw 3 big boutiques only being specialized on reselling luxury brand articles. Wow. And they were really saying, see fashion now as an investment. So that was a new perspective as well to me, to understand that fashion can be an investment now, that people are looking to this as an investment, that you maybe have never worn the handbag or the fashion item that you purchased, but that you buy it as an investment to then sell it at a higher price than you purchased it. So it's very interesting to look into this. But then for other markets, footwear, how big is the market for footwear? I don't know. I would personally not be so keen to buy pre-owned shoes probably. And then automotive, there's a big way to go. As I mentioned before, we had this vision of 6 lives coming out of an interior. Today interiors get shredded and burned, but what's happening tomorrow? So I do have the hope that as well the automotive industry is working already on new ideas. I trust they do, but then they don't disclose it until the car is published. Yeah.
But you mentioned the leather working group. What is that exactly?
Yeah, that's an organization which is really amazing. They help the brands to get trust into tanneries. So they are screening tannery, something that you do on your Cradle to Cradle initiative. They do particularly on the tannery side. They have different levels, so you can just be member, but then you can as well be rated, bronze, silver, gold rated. And what is really amazing that they look every year into their status and in the state-of-the-art technology which is around. So if you're a gold member today, that doesn't mean that tomorrow you will win, because every year the level goes up depending on what technical innovation was introduced to the market. And as a tannery, you need to follow this. And that's really amazing. So it really helps brands to gain confidence into selecting the tanners that they work with. So we mainly as well work with leather working group partners. And because we as well, for us, sustainability is so important, we want to make sure that the chemical is reaching tanneries which are sustainably working.
Okay. And Nienke, if I want to buy shoes or leather, leather products in general, how can I know if I'm buying, it's a question I received from a viewer, how can I know if I'm buying a so-called durable product and not something plastic?
Yeah. Well, we already said that leather has very good quality, has a good quality perspective on longevity. So you can wear it for a longer period. I think it would be interesting to look at quality in terms of maybe I think maybe you could maybe a bit better answer it.
It's a very tricky question.
It's tricky because you can't say this brand sells a better product always than that brand, because everybody uses another supply chain for their goods. I find it always hard to say that the luxury brands are always better than the others or something. Yeah. But of course, when you can pay a higher price, the quality that you get for it and the verification, for example, of all the sustainability aspects are sometimes better validated, but it's not always the case. So therefore, I find it hard. So I'm wondering if Florian can add some.
Can you repeat the question, because it's really a good one?
If I want to buy shoes or leather products, how can I know if it's durable and not something plastic? That was the question. Yeah.
And that is hidden in the Leather UK survey. So there is really confusion in the market because of mislabeling. The term leather is very often used for products which are not animal related. So now we have 2 countries which have decided that only leather is allowed to be called leather when it's really coming from animals. Okay. And Textile Exchange has now as well said that they follow this definition, which is a very good step forward. Because there is even material out there which is 100% bio-based, which by the brand, it's labeled as 100% bio-based leather, but it's not leather. So it's really confusing, and I think talking about legislation, and you were like, governments, please listen. So I think it's really important that governments help the industry here, and as well the end consumer. As there is so much mislabeling and misinformation. So even if you look into luxury brands, they have canvas and they sell it to prices where you and I will probably be happy to get a good leather good from a no brand company, but it's canvas, so it's more or less plastic, and they sell it as such a high price. And if you are not educated well enough, or you don't question, then you might end up buying plastic at a price of leather or even a higher price as leather. So I think it's really important that you have a trustworthy relationship to the brand that you're buying from, and what they tell you is true. And maybe as well ask the question, when it says 100% bio-based leather, is it from an animal or is it an alternative material? As there is a mislabeling now.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, and maybe how can the Cradle to Cradle certified come into the picture in this matter?
So I think what we do besides creating those requirements, which are interesting to comply to, but that's a theory, you could say. But then what we try to do is really look at the product, the materials, the supply chain together with our assessors, which are qualified consultants that really look at improvements of the materials or supply chain, wet processing, but also how the product is designed, where you can find the service providers for the take back and sorting. So that's where we provide a full program of also knowledge and training and gathering of our community events. Where we try to really involve our community and connect them with each other, but also with our assessors to bring more value to them for improve their products and really get a third-party validation of what they do, because that's so important now these days. There are so many green claims made which are not factually, onderbouwd, like
checked.
Really factually be trusted. So I think that's what we need: very clear statements that have been third party validated, and that's what we do. And also to include circularity, because that's missing in most of the other existing standards and programs. And I think it's important to combine all the actors that define if a product is sustainable, circular, or responsibly made. I think you need a combination to make it also simple for the consumer who buys this product.
Yes. We have reached the final 5 minutes of this masterclass. My God, time flies.
Yeah.
But we have such an interactive audience, so I still want to share one question, if that is okay with you. How do I know if I buy real leather? So are there ways for consumers to know, for example, via QR codes that gives disclosure of the life of the product? That's maybe a good idea.
I think some brands have started with doing this to as well explain where then the material is coming from. And I think it's really more important as a consumer to get curious about the labels and to see what the product is made out of. Myself, I realized that I was buying shirt brands for many, many years, and I discovered that this year, for whatever reason, they started to add polyester into a 100% cotton shirt where there was no polyester before. So I didn't buy it because I don't want to buy polyester, or even in a mix, because I want to avoid to have the microfibers being washed into the ocean. So I think really looking into labels becomes more and more crucial for the end consumer. And if it's not clear, ask until you have the question. And if you can't get the question, don't buy it.
Yeah. So as a consumer, we also have a responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have choices.
Exactly.
Definitely. And there's already a law for indicating what fiber is being used. So as a company, you already have the obligation to give the right facts to the consumer. But it's now only material based, like if it's cotton or leather or viscose. But I think we need to add a clear extra label to it, like what is the impact of the product, or can I cycle this product? So I think we will have more information on our product soon, but it must be so clear and simple to make it understandable instead of all these facts that are behind it that we all take care of.
There are so many questions, but we don't have the time left to share them. So I really want to thank my audience, by the way, for your valuable questions. But we have reached the final minutes of this masterclass. I just want to mention that this masterclass was recorded. So the recording is available on niratunning.com/masterclasses. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter. Nienke and Florian, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, for the insights on this rather extensive topic, #understatement. Thank you very much. It is really impossible for me to summarize everything we talked about, but apparently a quote from Piet Seeger is applicable to what we have been discussing here, and it says, I'll read it out loud: if it can't be reduced, reused, repaired, rebuilt, refurbished, refinished, resold, recycled or composted, then it should be restricted, redesigned, or removed from production. Bam. And on that bombshell, I want to thank you for watching. And as far as I'm concerned, see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.